ladies and gentlemen. Before I get on here, I was looking at some YouTube channels, a little YouTube surfing, and I saw another booktuber, his name's Philip Chase, juggling before he got onto his video. Well, guess what? I can do that too. And I got a leg trick. Here we go. Watch me mess this up now. Ta-da! Anyhow, so I'm going to talk to you about Dungeons and Dragons books. And I think even listening to authors sometimes, like I have an old book about writing fantasy. And one of the authors that did a piece of the book said, as a tip, nothing like Dungeons and Dragons. And I thought that was a little wrong, or at least I didn't agree with it, because there are some hits and misses. I mean, there's some pretty bad books, but there's also some really good books that I put up against just about anything. The first ones I actually did in a previous video. What we have here is, where is it? White Plume Mountain, Descent into the Depths of the Earth, and Queen of the Demon Web Pits. And there you see the spider goddess Loth on the cover there. These are so much fun. These are set in the world of Greyhawk, which is, I guess, technically the second D&D world, if I'm not mistaken. The first one being Blackmoor, and then that was incorporated into Greyhawk, which you see across the top there. Your two main leads are the Justicar, he calls himself that, and Ashala. And the dynamic between these two is just a lot of fun. She's the one smart one with a sense of humor. He's the smart one without a sense of humor. But they make a great team, and they have companions, and they go through. This one, even though it's the most game-like one, where they set off to this place, White Blue Mountain, and the wizard there has set it all up. There's monsters trapped in certain areas, and you just go and do battle with them. This one feels most like a game. You don't need to know the game to enjoy the book, but this is the one that feels most like that. The rest of the other two are just, they go out and do their thing, a little looser in that way. It's just the environment that they're in. This is basically on the way to this one. And still, even though you have this spider queen here, and at one point she takes human form, and she's basically a spoiled diva. She's got a little assistant that kind of has to deal with her. But at the same time, one of the more horrific things I've ever read in a book occurs in a blood sacrifice in that one right there. All those by Paul Kidd. The next ones I'm going to grab here are Dragonlance books. The original series of Dragonlance books I actually didn't like, and it was these others that came up that along the way. I actually read these first and tried to go back and read the originals, and I just wasn't that thrilled with them. So I kind of tried to grab the cream of the crop here. The first one, this is called The Dragons. This is a short story collection, and a couple of the standout stories, there is one of them, a dragon wakes up on his hoard, and he smells a thief. And there's this little cat and mouse chase from the dragon's point of view, and he is able to get into its head and have a mental combat and intimidation factor as he tries to hunt down this thief. The other one is at the end of the book, and basically you have, again from a dragon's perspective, it starts out where Tiamat, the goddess of evil dragons, five-headed dragon, has to, oh, I have a picture of her. Let me run off here. We're going to find Tiamat. Also in Dragonlance called Takis. That's her, the five-headed dragon right there. She sends her evil dragons off to find the last of the good dragons and their eggs and to kill them. And only one dragon remains to defend against the others trying to get these dragon eggs. The other book, put it in this place here. I'm sorry. The Dragons at War is actually the short story collection. If I'm getting this right, I might get these mixed up. Nope. This is the Dragons at War. This is the short story collection. This one is a sequel to the final story, and all the dragon eggs hatch, and you follow them throughout their lives as they grow up and deal with the human world. Also in Dragonlance, we have what I guess is the Darth Vader of Dungeons and Dragons, and his name is Lord Soth. There's his name there. That's him on the cover. This is his origin story, where he is a well-renowned and respected knight. He's a good guy, but he has marital affairs. He starts turning towards the side of evil, and he falls hard into that realm. And the two stories featuring him that I liked, Knight of the Black Rose, that's him there in his evil form. He's undead, and he winds up, excuse me, in this place here called Ravenloft, which is basically Horrorville, run by a vampire. And it has a sequel, Spectre of the Black Rose. And this is him on an adventure. This one's a little more serious and gets a little more emotional towards the character, where he actually kind of has a chance of redemption, and then you'll see if he takes into it or not. That's I think actually a better book than the first one. Another, we're gonna go with, I think, Dark Sun next. So this was brought about by author, or at least written about, his name's Troy Denning. And it's called The Prison Pantan, because there are 5 of them. Artist Brom is the one who really gave the look to these books. You'll see his art on the cover here. I'm going to give you a better piece of artwork here in just a second. This is the second book, and it features a character called Rikus, and he is a gladiator. And this is like, I don't know if he can beat Conan in a fight, but this is Super Conan. This is a badass dude right here. I always thought this particular picture, though, he looked like a barbarian stripper. And so I never really liked that particular one. But we go back here and we find other Brom artwork, and there are a couple of Rikus pictures. Here we go. That's him in the middle there with the, right there. Well, that's a great picture right there. And that's him there too. And those are just better pieces of work for him. This scene right here actually is a kind of a bit of a scene from this book that he stars in. So this is an introduction to this group of characters, and this stars Rikus, this guy, and each book stars a different character in the group. This winds up being a financier, if you want to call him that. He is a psionicist, a mentally powerful individual. Here we have someone who everyone wants to be her love interest, that is Sadira, and she starts off as what's called a preserver. The thing about Dark Sun is that it is a post-apocalyptic magic world where it ran amok and it just drained the world. It is mostly desert, because what you do to power your magic is you drain it from life, and too many people did that and just wrecked the place. Psionics kind of took over as one of the main things, but there's still magic in the world, and the good guys are called preservers. They take a little bit, but don't take it all. Then there's defilers. They'll take it all. They do anything to win. They won't stop. So good guys versus bad guys, and the bad guys tend to have the upper hand because they will not stop. They'll drain it all. And there's a wonderful, I still got it. I should have pulled it out of there in the first place. There it is. Well prepared, but this was a map that came with the game system itself there on a canvas backing like a scroll. And a lot of that map is uncovered in each one of these books. So as you go through it, it starts with a portion of that map. You see Mark Lawrence, author Mark Lawrence. We like maps. Mark Lawrence doesn't like maps. We want maps. There is more in Dark Sun that I liked. This is a 4-book series. I don't particularly know if the series had a title. Outcast, Seeker, Nomad, and The Broken Blade. These all star this guy right here, who has a particular potential. He's actually a very effective, powerful guy anyway, but he has a destiny amongst an enclave of women, and he can get all their powers at once. It gets a little wonky at the end, maybe a little too over the top powerful, but good relationships here, and just someone trying to find his way through the world and find out his destiny. Those are really excellent. This one in Dark Sun, Rise and Fall of a Dragon King. This stars a character. His name is Hamanu, and he is one of a few beings on this world who rules a city. He's supremely powerful. They call him the king of the world. One of his primary aspects is a giant man with a lion's head. And this is kind of a biography as he goes through and discovers himself and his purpose. I guess as far as the primary D&D worlds go, I'd be committing a blasphemy if I did not mention, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Drizzt Do'Urden. And he is like the guy in the Forgotten Realms. This is a dark elf who came out of a subterranean city. Again, even though this is a different world, they do use Loth, the demon queen of spiders. They worship her. And he, not being an evil one, escapes. You see there with him a panther companion, a 600-pound panther. It actually takes the form of a pendant he wears, and he can grab it and throw it off, and she gives him a lot of help. I cannot pronounce her name for nothing, so I'm not even going to try. This particular book, this is like the 24th book in a series with this guy, but it started a whole new aspect for him and his companions. There is another warrior woman that was with him. There is a thief halfling and this giant Thor-like being. And this book, what happened in the game was they switched versions, a third to a fourth version, and they advanced their timeline, their official timeline, by 100 years. So this helped move these characters ahead a century, so he gets to write about them instead of them going old and dying. And he not only does it well, this might be his best book. Each one, he goes into a new history for each one of these characters, and you get a character development. For example, the halfling thief throughout the previous books. He wasn't particularly confident with himself because he was the weakest link. And in this, he changes and becomes an assassin, and he becomes a lot more confident in himself. So just a wonderful change for all these characters. I read just a few. Maybe I didn't hit the right ones. They're okay. They were well enough to read, but never really hit me that much. But when they relaunched, I wanted to give it a try, and I'm glad I did. And the first batch of books that came out of it. Oh, hardbacks. If I'm going to pronounce that right, Gauntlgrim. This is a kingdom of dwarves, and basically it's a lost city that they go looking for. This character here, that's Dritz there, and doing battle with what's going to be his warrior nemesis for the series there, and she's got a very powerful 3-section magic staff there, and that is a 4-book series called Neverwinter, and there are 4 of those in there. Also in Forgotten Realms, so this also happened during the game changeover and the timeline change, and you have a Richard Lee Byers, it's called The Haunted Lands, and there is a section here where you have these wizards who rule a particular country, and the lead one is an undead. He's a lich, and he takes over and kills off everybody else and wants to unleash an army of the undead upon the world and do his best to take over. It's in the middle book that there's a big magic accident. It's called the Sundering, and that's what happens in here, the Sundering. And so magic goes awry, and his plans are kind of thrown for a loop. And I actually asked the author if this was planned from the beginning. I got to talk to him just for a quick exchange. We're not buddies or anything on Facebook. If that was planned from the beginning, or if he had to adapt to the change of the game. And he said, no, it was done from the beginning. So it wasn't, he wasn't thrown for a loop in writing these books. And you have a bard character in here. You have a monk obsessed with death because he's part of a group called the Monks of the Long Death. They worship death, they study death, but he took a potion that keeps him alive. So he's got a bit of a death wish himself, but he won't age and die. And he becomes a very big problem for everyone in these books, including the undead guy here trying to take over the world. Get rid of that. So there's the official Dungeons and Dragons worlds, and then they did an open license where you could make your own D&D worlds and publish them. And the biggest one that came out of it is called Pathfinder. And they released a big series of novels. There's, again, some very bad ones, but a lot of these really, I stick up against anything. These in particular, these are done by David Gross. We've got the Prince of Wolves. I'm going to do them all real quick. Master of Devils? Yes, Master of Devils. Lord of Runes. Lovely cover art there. Queen of Thorns. And the King of Chaos. And the biggest attraction that these books have, not only do they take you through the world and like a tour guide through the world really well, but the 2 lead characters, one Count Jaeger and his bodyguard Radovan. And Jaeger, he's an aristocrat, he's a bit of a wizard. He's arrogant enough to recognize his station, and you hear his form of speech, which is very high and literary and so forth. And then they switch perspectives to Radovan, and he's a hard ass, and he's like Wolverine from the comics, and he's got a bit of a bad attitude, but he's on the side of good, but he's not the friendliest sort, though he does have at least some kind of sense of humor. And just their inner dialogue as they walk you through their adventures is worth the price of these alone. And they have a professional relationship, but it's actually a good personal one too. You want to read those. These are the best of the Pathfinder books. I grabbed this one. This is called Plague of Shadows, and this has a very cliche overall plot of well, there's a curse and we got to remove the curse. What this does, though, is it starts up after a group of adventurers has retired, and you see it through one adventurer's perspective, and she has flashbacks to their time as a group going on adventures, and it's a troublesome one rather than just everybody getting along. So there's a conflict that came up with this group, and someone tasks her to go and remove this curse as she goes through her own history. That's a wonderful read right there. This, if you like heists, if you like fantasy heists, this is the one. Funny enough, but only lightly. Basically, you got the one guy, he's a con man, and he's got to get the group together to go up to a place called the World Wound, where a bunch of evil is trying to come up out of the earth, and they kind of keep it at bay. One of the aspects of this that I liked was a police officer, fantasy police officer, who they find out is on the side of the demons. And he speculates once about how these things happen. And basically he thought what it begins with is something like an interrogation. And one day you just lose it and you smack the perpetrator across the face. And then, that kind of worked. And it makes it easier that the next time you interview someone, you punch them in the face. And then it gets worse and worse, and you become corrupt. And eventually, in a world like this, evil. And so, but otherwise, this is a heist book. What did I want to get? So this is called The Shy Knives, and we are talking author Sam Sykes. And this guy went on, I had to check that because he went on to make an amazing trilogy, which maybe one day I'll cover and review. But you see there a centaur, and this lady right here, she's a fun one to have as a perspective character. She is a thief. One of the aspects in the game is that thieves are good at sneaking up behind you and stabbing you in the back. And one of the coolest things I've read in the book, she will tell you herself in the book, she's not exactly that good in a stand-up fight. But she gets out in the woods and a bunch of centaurs hunting her down. And now she can sneak around and do battle properly with her skills. And it's one of the coolest things. I loved it. This one here, this is funny. This is not a superhero book. This guy's, he's a little guy. You see a big troll behind him. What I'll say about it is that if it describes the book, there's this one scene that describes the whole book. Just the funniest thing, where someone gets their comeuppance, and this troll, not really good or evil, just walks up, plucks his head off, scoop, scoops it down just like that. This is a fun book to read about one of the Pathfinder books, probably the funniest one. That's really all I had for Dungeons and Dragons. I want to show you these anyway. I'm going to grab them. I'm not going to get into them. I just wanted to show you, since I happen to see that Sam Sykes did 3 of the coolest books you'll ever read, starting with 7 Blades in Black, if you're interested in moving on. I'll probably do those separate sometime. So that's about all I got for that. Dungeons and Dragons, some books that hold up to anything, despite what some people might think. I think that what I might, not necessarily next, but I'm gearing up for my favorite fantasy series I've ever read. I won't tell you what it is yet. I don't argue with people when they say Lord of the Rings is the greatest fantasy series of all time. I can't argue with it. It's just not my personal favorite. And I'm going to do some kind of deep dive. Like all these, I did basically just reviews and summaries to try to entice you to read them. But what I intend to do for this one series is do the same thing, just introduce you to it. But I'm going to sit there and do some kind of spoiler throughout just to summarize the events and do that, either the next day I have off or the one after that, usually on a Thursday or a Saturday like today, which is when I'm doing this. But that's about it for now. Thank you very much. I hope you like and subscribe, and I hope you have a lovely day and a lovely weekend. Thank you.